Welcome to another religious education 5-minute recap video. We're on the exam board Eduqas, we're looking at foundational Catholic theology, and we're exploring the good and evil unit. Today's session is going to focus on types of evil, and I'm hoping you're going to be able to explain those types of evil with examples, and then we're also going to try and compare and think about the implication of these types of evil for both God and humans. So, when we start with the definition of evil, it's something which is immoral, bad, harmful, causes injury or suffering. That's kind of a standard definition that you need to look at. And it could include anything along the lines of things like terrorism, natural disasters, or even war. Each of these in their own way will cause some sort of harm or injury or suffering to individuals, and therefore it is considered bad, or a posher word, immoral, wrong. However, for your exam, you're going to need to explore two specific types of evil. The first one is moral evil, and these are actions done by humans which cause suffering. So these are things which humans will do, such as terrorism, theft, and war. Each of these are instigated or caused by humans, and then they inflict pain, harm, injury, suffering on others. Second definition you need to be aware of is natural evil, and these are things which cause suffering, but they're nothing to do with humans. So the kind of clues in the name, really. Natural evil means they naturally occur, nothing to do with humans, and they include things such as tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, and tsunamis or floods. So anything you can think of that is separate to humans. Now, both of these two, although they are types of evil, they've both got kind of different impacts or different implications for both humans and God. And we're going to start with moral evil. So moral evil, it's seen as a problem for humans because it is humans inflicting pain on each other. And the problem is that humans have got free will. They've got a choice. They can act in a good way or a bad way. When they choose to act in a bad way, they therefore inflict this pain and this suffering, this harm on others. So some people feel moral evil is a huge problem for humans because it's something they could easily change, but they don't want to for whatever reason. However, some people do argue that God's actually to blame because he's the one who created humans. Therefore, he's the one who's responsible for their actions. Similar to kind of like how a parent is responsible for their child's actions. Furthermore, God's also omniscient, so he knows everything that was, is, and will happen. So he knew that humans were going to misuse this free will, and he knew that they were going to cause evil and suffering, yet he made them anyway, and yet he allowed them to make these decisions anyway without intervening. So some people would actually argue moral evil is a huge problem for God, because he's ultimately responsible for the human race. On the balance of things, often moral evil can mostly be blamed on humans because we are in charge of our lives and we are in charge of our choices. So moral evil often seen as a bigger issue for humans rather than God. Secondly, natural evil. Well, this is seen as a problem for humans because obviously it causes suffering. However, since it doesn't come from humans, humans don't necessarily cause some of these natural disasters. Some people will blame God. They argue that according to Genesis, God created absolutely everything from nothing. There's a nice link here where you could bring in St. Augustine and talk about creatio ex nihilo. You could use that quote from Genesis, formless and void. You could even use that quote where God describes creation as very good. But if God has created absolutely everything from nothing, then this would imply that he's also created the natural disasters that are in the world. Therefore, God has designed and created a world in which he knew humans were going to suffer through these natural disasters. He could easily have created a world that didn't have these in, but he didn't. So natural evil is seen as a massive problem for God. However, some people will argue back and state that although natural disasters do occur, humans are more to blame because they don't help each other in these situations. You know, some countries, they'll spend more on their military and charity and humanitarian aid. And many natural disasters, they could be avoided through planning, financial support, and even alternative energy sources. Take the current climate crisis right now. People could work towards using greener energy. However, there's a lot of greed that's in the world that are pushing people towards using things such as coal, oil, and gas to try and keep standards of living high and not make things too expensive. However, there's a choice that people make, and therefore humans, it can be argued, do cause a lot of these natural disasters. Overall, looking at natural disasters and natural evil, often people argue it's a bigger problem for God because he's the one who's created the world according to Genesis. Now, have a look down this list, see if you can link each of these key points to explain the different types of evil. If you can do that, you've been successful. If you want to push yourself that little bit further, go for one of these questions on the screen. Whatever you get up to, good luck and thank you for listening.